My diagnosis happened, and it's funny how we remember dates, you know, 23rd of April, 1998, 2:15 p.m. I walked into this neurologist's office, and I had probably since about the beginning of March been having a few symptoms. I'd actually been in Hobart swimming at the Masters Nationals, and I was probably the fittest I'd ever been for swimming, but I swam like a stone. When I got home, I thought I had the flu. My balance was off. I just didn't feel right. I spent about a week in bed. I went to the doctor. He thought I had an inner ear infection because my balance, I'd walk down the hall and hit the wall. I'd walk outside and fall. And then my eyesight, I started having problems with my eyesight, double vision. And I walked into Merrington's Optical just to have my eyes tested, thinking it's got to be just something going on with my eyes. It was a young girl who was about 23. She just finished her schooling, and she knew exactly what it was, and she called my GP and said, have her tested for MS because she's got optic neuritis. I was 36 years old. He said, you've got MS. Basically, your life is over as you know it. So I would suggest you go home and get your affairs in order before you become incapacitated. That could have been the end of my life that day because of the way he delivered that diagnosis. Of course, my husband came home and he said, so what's going on? Because he phoned, and he phoned me, and he said, what did the doctor say? I said, no, I'm not going to discuss this on the phone. You come home. And when he did, of course, he was panicked because I wouldn't say anything on the phone. And I told him, I said, I have multiple sclerosis. And he's like, the hell is that? And I said, well, I'm not really sure. I just have it. And I told him what he had said. And I said, so you can have the house. I'll give you a divorce. I'm going to go home. And he just looked at me, and like all good Aussies, he went, God, you're an idiot. And I said, no, you don't. I was in a panic state. I said, no, you just don't get it. Like, this is what he said. He says, I don't give a damn what he said. He said, you don't have it. We have it. We'll deal with it. You know, it's funny. Don't ever use the word sufferers to people with MS, because I find that most people with MS, we live with it, we deal with it. You talk about family. Our family suffers. I've got relapsing and remitting MS, so I would invariably have a relapse where the legs might stop working, the bladder might stop working, I'd have numb face or pins and needles in my hands, fatigue would hit. I could deal with that because I knew what I was feeling. My husband would be an absolute mess because there's nothing he can do. With work, at the beginning, they were great because I was fine. I looked fine. But as the disease progressed and I got to the point where I was in a wheelchair and trying to maneuver around an office that really wasn't wheelchair friendly, they had never had anybody with a disability, I'd stress so much about getting back to full-time work that I'd have another relapse once I got back there. So stress for me with MS is probably the worst thing, one of the worst things that I can put on my body, because any kind of stress and it just crumpled. I got the disability payout, which was great for us because it gave me my superannuation as if I'd been there for 25 years. So we were able to eventually pay our house off. But in amongst all of this happening, and you talk about, you know, the rest of the family, when I got very ill at one point, my husband got retrenched at the same time. That was where income protection really kicked in for us, because it actually saved our house. I had trauma insurance, and I got a payout. I had some major problems with my bladder and bowel, more so than most people with MS, where I had major surgery in my bowel, and yeah, we got the trauma payout as well. I'd never been sick a day in my life, and this was never something that I ever thought would happen to me. You know, we all have these visions of what we're going to do with our life, and it's that old adage, you know, you're following this straight road, and all of a sudden there's a 90-degree turn, you're faced with a wall, and you go, oh my God, what am I going to do now? But a lot of the stuff I do, I started a charity event to raise money for MS Victoria back then. It was 10 years ago, and their Go for Gold scholarship program. They couldn't find the funding for $10,000 to give 5 scholarships of $2,000 to people with MS to follow a dream. And I thought, oh, I can get my swim club involved. We will raise the sports scholarship. And that year we actually invited other teams to partake, and we raised $22,000 the first year. We're at $2,041,000 in the 10 years. So it's been great. Well, number one, make sure you have all the protection that you can, not in a health way, but in a financial way. You can't predict what's going to happen tomorrow. Today's the only guarantee you have. And so I always say live every day. Live life like it's a terminal illness, I guess, is a really good way to look at it. And look, MS has taught me a few really good lessons. And I think my favorite one is that you have to dare to face your fears and believe in yourself. Because anything's possible. You never say never, and you never say can't. But again, without protection, the income protection, I wouldn't be able to do the things that I'm doing. And I probably would have that never in there, and I would have that, no, I can't do that. So I take those words out of my vocabulary and just try and live life.